As the winter of 2026 turned into spring, the legal maneuvering in Warren County shifted from the what to the why. Tony McAllister, the man whose face was once a fixture on a short-lived A&E reality show, sat in the Warren County Jail facing a staggering 30 counts of rape, bestiality, and corruption. But when it came time to enter a plea that would determine the rest of his life, his defense team chose the rarest and most difficult path in the American legal system: not guilty by reason of insanity, NGRI. For more true crime stories like this, hit the subscribe button. In the recent proceedings, we see the foundation being laid for this affirmative defense. An affirmative defense is a legal pivot. McAllister isn't saying, "I didn't do it." He is saying, "I did it, but I was so mentally ill at the time that I could not appreciate the wrongfulness of my actions." This is a high-stakes gamble. By pleading NGRI, McAllister has essentially handed the prosecution a confession of the acts, hoping that a psychological evaluation will shield him from the prison cell. Under Ohio law, the burden of proof for insanity falls squarely on the defendant. It is not enough to simply be mentally ill. The defense must prove by a preponderance of the evidence, meaning it is more likely than not, greater than 50%, that at the time of the commission of the offense, the person did not know their acts were wrong due to a severe mental disease or defect. In the courtroom, this has triggered a mandatory mental health evaluation. McAllister is now being scrutinized by forensic psychologists who are looking for evidence of conditions like schizophrenia or severe bipolar disorder with psychosis. However, as criminologist Dr. Debbie Goodman points out, the success rate for this defense is less than 2%. Most juries view the insanity plea not as a medical reality, but as a desperate attempt to avoid life without parole. This introduces a term that has left the South Lebanon community reeling: zoophilia. While most news reports used the legal term bestiality, the psychological profile being built for McAllister suggests a deeper, more chronic sexual depravity. Dr. Goodman explains that zoophilia is the actual sexual attraction to animals, while bestiality is the act itself. Investigators are now looking at whether this was a deep-seated psychological defect or simply a progression of the alternative lifestyle McAllister showcased on Neighbors with Benefits. For the neighbors who lived on Garden View Circle, the idea that a man they saw every day was engaging in what Dr. Goodman calls vile, vicious, and vulgar acts with his pets, Roscoe and Rocky, is a trauma that a simple insanity plea cannot erase. Despite the horrific nature of the charges, McAllister's lawyer has consistently argued for a bond reduction. This reveals the defense's strategy: portray Tony as a harmless, disabled man whose only prior run-in with the law was a phishing violation. They highlight his social security disability status and his ties to the community. But the judge, hearing the details of the repeated raping and the drugging of a 5-year-old, has held firm on the $250,000 bond. For McAllister, who claims he is too mentally ill to understand right from wrong, the reality of the four walls of his jail cell is the only constant. His hearing in April 2026 will determine if his mind is truly broken, or if he is simply a man trying to escape the consequences of a nightmare he helped record in high definition. For more true crime stories like this, hit the subscribe button. While Tony McAllister attempts to retreat into a defense of insanity, his co-defendant, Erica Grove, is building a wall of commendations and coercion. The February 2026 arraignment reveals a startling biography that makes the allegations against her even more difficult to reconcile. This wasn't just a nurse. This was a woman who had operated at the highest levels of the American military and political establishment. Erica Grove's attorney spent a significant portion of the hearing reading from her DD-214, the record of her military service. The list is long and impressive. 2010 to 2013, stationed at Tripler Army Medical Center in Hawaii, serving in the Mixed Medical Surgical ICU. 2011 to 2012, stationed in the Philippines as a critical care flight nurse during Operation Enduring Freedom, providing stabilization to combat casualties. 2016 to 2019, stationed at the Walter Reed National Military Medical Hospital. The most shocking detail? Erica Grove was selected to serve in the White House Medical Unit, providing critical care to both the first and second families. She holds the Meritorious Service Medal and the Global War on Terrorism Expeditionary Medal. This is a woman who was trusted with the lives of the most powerful people on earth. The defense is using this history of service to frame the charges as an impossibility. How could a woman of such high caliber, a veteran who cared for presidents, participate in the drugging and rape of a child? Her lawyer claims she has already passed both a polygraph and an ID tech test to show she never physically assaulted the victim. While polygraphs are not admissible at trial in Ohio, they are being used as a massive investigative tool to sway public opinion. The defense is essentially saying, the science proves she didn't do it, but the prosecution points to the 24-count indictment and the video evidence that they say tells a very different story. One where Grove's medical knowledge was used not to heal, but to facilitate nothingness. This confirms that Grove's primary defense is that she was largely coerced by Tony McCollister. Her lawyer told the court that investigators themselves had suggested to her parents that she was a victim of Tony's control. In this version of the story, the highly trained combat nurse became a puppet for a manipulative reality star. But this creates a logical paradox for the jury. How does a woman trained in combat stabilization and ICU critical care, who has traveled the world and served in the White House, become so coerced that she allegedly drugs a preschooler with anesthesia? The defense claims she was abused by McCollister. The prosecution claims she was his most vital accomplice. For more true crime stories like this, hit the subscribe button. As we look toward the April 2026 hearing, the two defendants are on a collision course. If Tony McCollister is found to be insane, it effectively destroys Erica Grove's coercion defense. If he wasn't in control of his own mind, how could he have been a master manipulator who coerced a White House nurse into a year-long campaign of abuse? While the lawyers argue over bond and mental health, the real victims remain in the shadow of the court. This mentions Roscoe and Rocky, the two dogs seized from the home. McCollister has officially relinquished them, a move Dr. Goodman calls meaningless since he's in jail and facing bestiality charges anyway. The dogs are safe, but they remain a physical piece of evidence in a case of sexual depravity. More importantly, the 5-year-old girl at the heart of the rape and drugging charges is now out of the house. This notes that Erica Grove is free on bail, having posted the 10% of her $250,000 bond, but is under really strict electronic monitoring. She is a woman who once walked the halls of the White House and is now confined to her home, forbidden from coming near a child or a pet. The most haunting phrase comes from prosecutor David Fornshell, who described the review of the evidence as just silence. In a room filled with people who prosecute child abuse every day, the digital files from Tony McCollister's account were so horrific that no one could speak. That silence is what the defense has to overcome. Whether it's insanity or coercion, they have to explain away video files that the state says show a preschooler being drugged and raped. In April, the not guilty by reason of insanity defense will face its first major test. The court-ordered evaluation will be unsealed, and we will finally know if Tony McCollister will be sent to a hospital or a prison, and whether Erica Grove's White House resume will be enough to save her from the nothingness she is accused of creating. And as always, you've been watching True Crime Story Vault, where every story is told with facts, clarity, and respect for the people affected. If you want to see more fact-based true crime stories like this one, make sure you subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments. Until next time, remember, the truth is never buried.